There's a quiet truth about children who grow up feeling ignored. Many of them become adults who struggle to believe they deserve attention at all. They walk into a room and feel like they should take up as little space as possible. In relationships, they worry they're too much. Even when they succeed at something, they expect it to be overlooked because being invisible feels normal to them. This doesn't happen because they lack talent or worth. It happens because their sense of self was built in silence. Psychologists call this an internalized neglect schema. Over time, the brain gets used to expecting neglect. It learns to assume that needs will be dismissed and that asking for love or support is a burden. A child who is ignored enough eventually stops asking. They start to believe that wanting care or attention is somehow wrong. You may have seen a child quietly tugging on a parent's sleeve at a crowded event, waiting for even a small sign of attention. Maybe on a playground or in your own family, there's always that one child who stays quiet instead of crying loudly. On the outside, nothing dramatic seems to be happening. But inside, something very important is taking shape. For a child, being ignored is not a small thing. It can feel like a crack forming in their sense of who they are. And the difficult part is that neglect isn't always obvious. It doesn't always look like abuse or cruelty. Sometimes it's simply a parent being too busy, tired, or distracted. Sometimes it's the unanswered question, the lack of eye contact, or the forgotten birthday. But the effects run deep. Childhood neglect shapes how a person sees themselves, the world, and their relationships, sometimes even decades later. We often say children are resilient, and in many ways they are. They adapt. But adapting isn't the same as healing. A child who grows up without acknowledgement learns to hide their needs, to make themselves smaller, and to believe they matter less. This helps them survive childhood, but it can follow them into adulthood without them realizing it. Psychologically, acknowledgement isn't just something that feels nice, it's essential. Research shows that children need 3 core things to grow well: safety, stimulation, and connection. If anyone is missing, development is affected. But connection, being seen, heard, and valued, is the one that shapes a child's sense of self the most. John Bowlby, who developed attachment theory, explained that when caregivers consistently notice and respond to a child's needs, the child builds a sense of trust and security. Underscore 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 underscore. When a child grows up being ignored, it doesn't just hurt in the moment. It shapes how they see themselves for years. A child who is often met with silence starts to believe dangerous things like, maybe I don't deserve love, or maybe I'm not important. This isn't dramatic, it's backed by science. When a child tries to connect and is ignored again and again, the brain treats it like a threat. Stress chemicals rise, and over time the child's body becomes wired to expect rejection. They may look calm and quiet, but inside, their nervous system is overwhelmed. Neglect is not always obvious. When a child is mistreated, the harm is clear. But when a child is ignored, the damage is hidden. A child might stop asking questions because no one answers. They may stop showing excitement because no one responds. Slowly, they fade emotionally. Psychologists call this emotional neglect. It doesn't leave visible scars, it leaves invisible ones that often show up later in life. Adults who grew up ignored often have low self-esteem. They avoid sharing their feelings because they assume no one cares. Some avoid relationships because they fear rejection, while others cling tightly to anyone who gives them attention. Many try to earn approval by being perfect or helpful. This doesn't mean every ignored child is doomed. Many grow into compassionate, thoughtful adults because they know what it feels like to be unseen. But healing takes time. It begins by recognizing the truth: what happened to me mattered. Healing can start with simple things. Noticing your feelings. Celebrating your small wins. Allowing yourself to ask for help. Saying out loud, my needs matter. Even tiny steps like this help rewire the brain. Every moment of healthy connection teaches the nervous system that it's safe. Every boundary set and respected builds trust. Healing doesn't always look dramatic, it often looks like speaking up when you would have stayed silent. It's also important to understand that parents who ignored their children often grew up the same way. These patterns can last for generations. When someone begins healing from being ignored, they're breaking a long chain. They become a parent, friend, or partner who listens, who notices, who shows care. Ignored children often believe they didn't matter. But their story carries real power. Sharing it helps others feel less alone. Healing doesn't erase the past, but it gives you the love you should have received long ago. Being ignored shaped you, but it doesn't define you. The story of the ignored child isn't just a story of pain, it's also a story of resilience, empathy, and strength. Often, the child who felt invisible becomes the adult who refuses to let others feel unseen. And here's the truth. You were never truly invisible. You were simply waiting for someone to finally see you.